Most people spend their entire lives fighting the wrong enemy. What if the part of yourself you've been taught to fear is actually the source of your greatest strength? And what if ignoring it is costing you far more than you realize? There's a dangerous myth that has shaped countless lives, that everything hidden inside you is dark, irrational, and threatening. That your unconscious is nothing more than a storage room filled with fears, impulses, and painful memories. But according to Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, that belief couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, he argued something deeply counterintuitive. The unconscious is not only capable of producing your worst mistakes, it is also the source of your highest good. Think about that for a moment. The same place that stores your fears may also contain your courage. The same depths that hold your wounds may also hold your healing. The same unconscious forces that create confusion may be hiding your creativity, your intuition, your purpose, and the version of yourself you've never fully met. The problem is that most people never discover this. They spend years trying to control every thought, suppress every uncomfortable emotion, and avoid every shadow within themselves. Meanwhile, hidden talents remain buried. Wisdom goes unheard. Opportunities for transformation pass unnoticed. It's like living above a vault filled with gold while believing there's nothing underneath but darkness. And here's the unsettling part. Whether you acknowledge the unconscious or not, it's already influencing your life. It's shaping your decisions, guiding your reactions, affecting your relationships, whispering through your dreams, speaking through your emotions, and quietly directing far more of your reality than you might imagine. In this video, you're going to discover why the unconscious is not blind, how it communicates through symbols, emotions, intuition, and hidden patterns, and why some of the greatest gifts you'll ever uncover are buried in the very places you've spent years avoiding. Because once you understand what Jung was trying to reveal, you'll never look at yourself or your life the same way again. Most people spend their entire lives running from parts of themselves they don't understand. The strange thing is that what you avoid isn't always dangerous. Sometimes it's the very thing that could set you free. Think about it for a moment. Every forest that looks frightening from a distance hides life inside it. Every ocean that appears dark from the shore contains entire worlds beneath the surface. Your unconscious works the same way. Yet from childhood, you've been taught to fear what you cannot see. Fear your anger, fear your doubts, fear your impulses, fear your shadow. And because of that, you learn to lock away pieces of yourself like forgotten objects in a dusty attic. The problem is that those hidden pieces don't disappear. They wait, they grow, they influence your decisions in ways you rarely notice. Have you ever reacted far more strongly to something than the situation deserved? Maybe someone criticized you, and suddenly you felt a wave of anger that seemed to come from nowhere. Maybe you sabotaged an opportunity you've wanted for years. Maybe you pushed away someone you deeply cared about. In moments like these, It often feels as if an invisible force has taken control of the wheel. That's because the unconscious isn't blind. It's active. It's constantly shaping your thoughts, emotions, habits, and relationships. Like roots beneath a giant tree, it determines what appears above ground. You only see the branches. You only see the leaves. But the real story is happening underneath, in places you've never taken the time to explore. Carl Jung believed that hidden within the shadow are not only your fears, but also your greatest strengths. That's a radical idea when you first hear it. Most people assume the shadow contains only darkness, but imagine discovering that inside the room you've been avoiding your entire life is a treasure chest. That's what happens when someone begins the process of self-discovery. The creativity you never expressed, the courage you never used, the intuition you constantly ignored, the confidence you thought other people were born with. These qualities don't vanish simply because you neglect them. They retreat into the unconscious, waiting patiently for recognition. Like gold buried beneath layers of soil, their value remains untouched, regardless of how long they've been hidden. You can actually see this process in everyday life. Think about the quiet person who suddenly discovers a passion for public speaking, or the employee who spends years following instructions before realizing they were meant to lead, or the artist who ignored their creativity until one day they couldn't suppress it anymore. The transformation appears sudden to outsiders, but it rarely is. The unconscious has been working behind the scenes for years. The seeds were always there. The potential was always there. What changed was awareness. That's why practices like journaling, dream reflection, meditation, and honest self-observation can be so powerful. They create small openings between the conscious mind and the deeper layers of the psyche. They allow hidden wisdom to rise to the surface. But here's where things become even more fascinating. Once you begin discovering the light hidden beneath your shadow, another realization starts to emerge. You notice that the unconscious isn't simply a storage room filled with forgotten memories. It's something far more alive than that. It seems to communicate. It seems to guide. It leaves clues through emotions, symbols, coincidences, dreams, and unexpected insights. At first, those signals can feel subtle, almost impossible to notice. But once you recognize them, it's hard to ignore the feeling that something deep inside you has been trying to get your attention all along. And what it wants to reveal next changes everything. There is a kingdom inside you that most people will never visit. Not because the gates are locked, but because stepping through them requires something rare: courage. Real courage isn't standing in front of danger. It's standing in front of yourself without looking away. Every day, millions of people move through life convinced they know who they are. They know their job title, their routines, their preferences, their history. But beneath that carefully constructed identity lies an entire inner world they rarely explore. And the deeper truth is this: the parts of you that remain unconscious don't stop influencing your life simply because you ignore them. They become the invisible architects of your reality, quietly shaping decisions while you believe you're fully in control. Think of your psyche as a vast kingdom. The conscious mind is merely the capital city, the small area illuminated by streetlights where activity is visible and organized. But beyond those walls stretches an enormous landscape filled with forgotten villages, hidden pathways, ancient ruins, and unexplored territories. Most people spend their lives pacing the same familiar streets, convinced the city is all there is. Meanwhile, entire regions of their inner world remain undiscovered. Their hidden fears dictate relationships. Their unconscious beliefs limit success. Their buried wounds shape their reactions. Their neglected dreams slowly transform into regret. And because these forces operate beneath awareness, they often feel like fate rather than patterns that can be understood and transformed. This is why two people can experience the exact same situation and react in completely different ways. One sees an opportunity and feels excitement. Another sees the same opportunity and feels fear. One receives criticism and learns from it. Another receives criticism and feels personally attacked. The event itself isn't creating the reaction. The unconscious is. Hidden beliefs, forgotten experiences, and emotional imprints are filtering reality long before conscious thought arrives. Imagine wearing colored glasses your entire life without realizing it. Everything you see appears normal because you've never experienced another perspective. That's exactly how unconscious patterns operate. They become so familiar that they feel like truth when they're often nothing more than old programming running in the background. One of the most powerful exercises you can practice is becoming curious about your own reactions. The next time something triggers a strong emotional response, pause before explaining it away. Ask yourself, why did this affect me so deeply? What fear is hiding underneath this feeling? What story am I telling myself right now? You'd be amazed how much wisdom emerges from simple observation. Some people discover that their fear of failure is actually a fear of judgment. Others realize their need for control is rooted in old experiences of uncertainty. Others uncover talents they've buried because they once believed they weren't good enough. Every honest question becomes a torch, illuminating another hidden corridor within the kingdom. Every moment of awareness expands the borders of what you truly know about yourself. Yet the deeper you travel into this inner world, the more mysterious it becomes. You begin noticing that certain emotions arrive carrying messages. Certain dreams refuse to be forgotten. Certain symbols appear repeatedly throughout your life. It's as though the kingdom itself is trying to communicate through a language older than logic, a language built not from words, but from images, instincts, intuition, and meaning. And once you start recognizing those messages, you realize you've been receiving them for far longer than you ever imagined. Most people look at pain and see an enemy. They see something to escape, suppress, numb, or forget. That's understandable. Pain can feel heavy. It can shake your confidence, steal your sleep, and leave scars that seem impossible to heal. But what if pain isn't merely a punishment? What if some of the greatest treasures of your life are buried beneath the very experiences you wish had never happened? This is one of the hardest truths to accept because every instinct tells you to run in the opposite direction. Yet time and again, those who undergo the deepest transformations discover something remarkable. Hidden within suffering is often a form of wisdom that could have been learned no other way. The unconscious has a strange habit of storing gold inside places we are afraid to revisit. Think about how nature works. Coal becomes a diamond under pressure. A seed must split apart before it can grow into a tree. Even a forest sometimes requires fire to clear away old growth and create space for new life. Human beings are no different. Some of the qualities you admire most in others, resilience, compassion, patience, courage, wisdom, are rarely born from comfort. They are forged through struggle. The person who understands loneliness often becomes deeply empathetic. The person who has experienced failure learns humility and persistence. The person who has faced uncertainty develops inner strength. Pain leaves marks, yes, but it also leaves lessons. The tragedy is not suffering itself. The tragedy is suffering without extracting the hidden treasure concealed within it. Have you ever noticed how certain wounds keep repeating themselves in different forms? A difficult relationship ends, and somehow the same pattern appears again with someone new. A fear follows you from one stage of life to another. A sense of inadequacy continues whispering in the background, no matter how much success you achieve. This happens because unresolved pain doesn't disappear. It sinks into the unconscious and continues influencing behavior from behind the scenes. Imagine trying to build a beautiful house on unstable foundations. No matter how impressive the structure looks from the outside, cracks eventually appear. The unconscious doesn't repeat pain to punish you. It repeats pain because there's something important you haven't fully seen yet. The lesson remains until it is understood. This is why self-reflection can be so transformative. The next time an old wound resurfaces, instead of immediately asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" The shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Consider keeping a journal where you write about recurring emotional patterns. Notice situations that trigger disproportionate reactions. Pay attention to recurring dreams or symbols. Read books that explore the deeper dimensions of suffering, such as the works of Jung, Viktor Frankl, or Joseph Campbell. These practices don't erase pain overnight. What they do is help transform suffering into insight. They turn wounds into teachers rather than lifelong prison cells. And here's where the journey becomes even more fascinating. As you begin uncovering the gold hidden within pain, you realize that the unconscious isn't communicating only through wounds. It also speaks through inspiration, through flashes of creativity, through instincts that arrive without explanation, through moments when you somehow know something before you can logically explain it. Pain may be one doorway into the unconscious, but it is far from the only one. Beyond the lessons hidden in suffering lies an even greater mystery, one that has guided human beings since the beginning of time. Most people spend their lives searching for goodness in all the wrong places. They search for it in rules, approval, achievements, status, or the image they present to the world. They believe that becoming a better person is simply a matter of controlling themselves more effectively. Be more disciplined, be more productive, be more moral, be more successful. While those things have value, they only tell part of the story. The deeper truth is that some of the most beautiful qualities within you were never manufactured by effort alone. They emerged naturally from places far beneath conscious thought. The unconscious is not merely a warehouse of forgotten memories and hidden fears. It is also a wellspring of compassion, creativity, wisdom, intuition, and transformation waiting to be recognized. Think about the most meaningful moments of your life. Chances are many of them arrived unexpectedly. A moment of profound love, an act of courage that surprised even you, an insight that suddenly solved a problem you'd struggled with for months, a creative breakthrough that appeared while taking a walk or sitting quietly. These experiences often feel as though they come from somewhere beyond deliberate thinking. That's because they do. The conscious mind likes to believe it is the sole author of your life story, but in reality, much of what is noble, beautiful, and life-changing emerges from deeper layers of the psyche. The unconscious is constantly working behind the curtain, weaving together experiences, emotions, memories, and possibilities in ways your rational mind cannot fully comprehend. This becomes especially clear when you look at great creators, innovators, and visionaries throughout history. Many describe their best ideas as discoveries rather than inventions. The scientist suddenly sees the solution after weeks of frustration. The writer wakes up with the missing piece of a story. The musician hears a melody seemingly out of nowhere. Even ordinary people experience this phenomenon. Have you ever stopped trying to solve a problem only to have the answer appear later while driving, showering, or drifting off to sleep? That's the unconscious at work. Like a master craftsman operating behind the scenes, it continues building connections long after your conscious attention has moved elsewhere. What appears magical is often the result of deeper intelligence quietly assembling the pieces. One practical way to strengthen your relationship with this hidden source of goodness is to create more moments of stillness. Modern life bombards you with noise, notifications, deadlines, endless streams of information. Many people are so distracted that they never hear the subtle voice of their own inner wisdom. Try spending 10 minutes each day in silence. Take walks without headphones. Keep a notebook beside your bed to capture dreams and insights. Read works that encourage reflection rather than constant stimulation. You may be surprised by what begins to surface. The unconscious rarely shouts. More often, it whispers. But those whispers can contain guidance powerful enough to alter the course of an entire life. As your awareness deepens, another realization begins to emerge. The unconscious does not communicate in the language of logic alone. It often speaks through symbols, images, emotions, and strange patterns that seem to appear repeatedly across your life. At first, these experiences may feel random, coincidental, easy to dismiss. Yet the more closely you pay attention, the more difficult it becomes to ignore the feeling that something ancient and intelligent is trying to guide you through a language older than words themselves. There are moments in life when logic reaches its limit. You've analyzed every angle, weighed every option, made lists of pros and cons, and still the answer refuses to appear. Then, out of nowhere, a feeling emerges. A quiet certainty, a subtle pull in a particular direction. You can't fully explain it, yet something deep inside knows. Most people have experienced this at least once, but few stop to ask where that knowing comes from. We live in a culture that worships rational thinking, and while reason is one of humanity's greatest tools, it is not the only form of intelligence available to you. Beneath the noise of everyday thought exists another source of wisdom, one that communicates not through arguments and explanations, but through symbols, emotions, instincts, dreams, and intuition. Imagine trying to understand the ocean by studying only the waves. That's how many people approach their inner life. They focus entirely on conscious thoughts while ignoring the vast depths beneath them. Yet the unconscious often perceives things long before the conscious mind catches up. Have you ever met someone and immediately felt uneasy despite having no logical reason, or felt drawn toward an opportunity you couldn't explain, or experienced a dream that stayed with you for days because it felt strangely important? These experiences are reminders that your unconscious is constantly gathering information, recognizing patterns, and processing reality in ways your conscious mind cannot fully track. It sees more than you realize. The challenge is learning how to listen. The language of the unconscious is symbolic rather than literal. That's why dreams often appear strange, emotional, or even absurd. They aren't trying to provide a straightforward explanation. They're speaking through imagery. A locked door may represent untapped potential. A storm may symbolize emotional turmoil. A journey through a dark forest may reflect a period of transformation. Ancient cultures understood this instinctively. Myths, legends, sacred stories, and archetypal symbols have appeared across civilizations because they reflect universal patterns hidden within the human psyche. The unconscious doesn't care much about spreadsheets and bullet points. It speaks in stories, metaphors, and images that bypass logic and touch something deeper within the soul. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is learning to pay attention without immediately demanding certainty. Keep a journal beside your bed and write down dreams before they fade. Notice recurring symbols that appear in your life. Pay attention to situations that trigger unusually strong emotions. Observe moments when intuition proves accurate. This doesn't mean abandoning critical thinking or blindly following every feeling. It means creating a partnership between conscious reasoning and unconscious wisdom. Think of it like sailing a ship. Logic provides the map and compass. The unconscious provides the wind. Without direction, the wind is chaotic. Without wind, the ship remains motionless. And the more you learn this language, the more extraordinary life begins to feel. You start noticing patterns that once seemed invisible, Certain symbols keep appearing, certain dreams return, certain emotional reactions reveal deeper truths about who you are becoming. Gradually, you realize that the unconscious is not some silent machine operating in the background. It is actively participating in your journey. Yet many people never experience its gifts because they fear what else they might find hidden in those depths. They sense that alongside wisdom, there may also be darkness, and that realization leads directly to one of the greatest misunderstandings about the human psyche. One of the greatest mistakes you can make on the path of self-discovery is believing that everything hidden within the unconscious is dangerous. For generations, people have been taught to fear their inner darkness. They hear words like shadow, unconscious, instinct, and hidden desires, and immediately imagine something threatening, something that must be controlled, suppressed, or eliminated. But here's the irony. The more you fear your inner world, the less you understand it. And what you don't understand often gains power over you. Imagine walking through a dark house at night. Every shadow seems frightening. Every sound feels suspicious, yet the moment you turn on the light, most of the fear disappears. The danger wasn't always in the darkness itself. Often, it was in what your imagination projected onto it. This misunderstanding creates an invisible prison. People spend years trying to appear good while secretly fighting parts of themselves they refuse to acknowledge. They suppress anger without understanding its message. They deny ambition because they're afraid of seeming selfish. They reject healthy confidence because they've confused it with arrogance. They hide their emotional needs because vulnerability feels uncomfortable. In doing so, they create a divided inner world. One part becomes the carefully managed public identity. The other becomes the rejected self. But the unconscious doesn't simply erase what you reject. It stores it. And what remains hidden often finds indirect ways to express itself through anxiety, resentment, self-sabotage, or emotional exhaustion. Think about a pressure cooker sitting on a stove. As heat increases, pressure builds inside. If there is no safe release, eventually something breaks. Human emotions work much the same way. When you constantly suppress what you're feeling, you're not eliminating those emotions. You're trapping them beneath the surface. That's why some people explode over seemingly minor situations. The argument wasn't really about dirty dishes. The frustration wasn't really about traffic. The disappointment wasn't really about a delayed message. Those moments often serve as outlets for emotions that have been accumulating for months or even years. The unconscious is not trying to destroy you. It's trying to get your attention. It's signaling that something inside requires awareness, understanding, and integration. A practical way to begin this work is by changing your relationship with uncomfortable emotions. Instead of immediately labeling anger, jealousy, fear, or sadness as bad, become curious about them. Ask yourself what purpose they might be serving. Anger may reveal violated boundaries. Fear may point toward an important challenge. Jealousy may expose a hidden desire you've neglected. Sadness may signal the need to grieve, heal, or let go. Emotions become dangerous primarily when they're ignored. Once understood, they often transform into valuable sources of information. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but every act of honest observation weakens the walls, separating you from your deeper self. As this fear begins to dissolve, something unexpected happens. The unconscious no longer appears as a dark cave filled with threats. It starts to resemble a vast landscape filled with both shadows and light. You begin to understand that growth isn't about destroying one side and embracing the other. It's about bringing them together. And once that process begins, another extraordinary force hidden within the unconscious starts to reveal itself. A force responsible for some of humanity's greatest works of art, discoveries, innovations, and moments of transformation. Most people think creativity belongs to artists, musicians, writers, or inventors, but creativity is far bigger than that. Creativity is the force that helps you reinvent your life after heartbreak. It's the spark that allows you to find solutions when circumstances seem impossible. It's what enables a struggling entrepreneur to build something new, a parent to guide a child through difficult times, or an ordinary person to transform pain into wisdom. Creativity is not merely a talent. It is a living force within the unconscious, and the strange thing is that it rarely emerges from certainty. More often, it appears when you're standing at the edge of the unknown, where familiar answers no longer work and something deeper is required. Think about every major breakthrough in human history. Before there was discovery, there was confusion. Before there was innovation, there was uncertainty. Before there was transformation, there was often frustration. The unconscious thrives in these spaces. While the conscious mind seeks clear instructions, the unconscious explores possibilities. It connects ideas that appear unrelated. It notices patterns hidden beneath the surface. It works quietly while you're focused elsewhere. That's why some of your best ideas arrive during a shower, a walk, a long drive, or just before falling asleep. The conscious mind loosens its grip, and suddenly the unconscious steps forward with a solution that seemed invisible only moments before. The answer wasn't created in that instant. It had been forming beneath the surface all along. Imagine a blacksmith standing before a blazing furnace. Raw metal enters the fire rigid and unformed. Through heat, pressure, and skill, it becomes something stronger and more useful. The unconscious often works in a similar way. Difficult experiences, uncertainty, and challenges become the fire that reshapes your inner world. What feels chaotic today may actually be preparing you for something greater tomorrow. This is why periods of confusion should not always be feared. Sometimes confusion is simply the mind's way of reorganizing itself before a breakthrough. The caterpillar doesn't understand the purpose of the cocoon while it's inside it. Yet without that uncomfortable transformation, there would be no butterfly. You can strengthen this creative relationship with the unconscious by making space for it. Many people are so busy consuming information that they never allow deeper insights to emerge. Every spare moment is filled with scrolling, notifications, entertainment, and distraction. Yet creativity often requires silence. It requires boredom. It requires moments where your mind is free to wander. Try taking a walk without your phone. Sit quietly for 15 minutes without seeking stimulation. Keep a notebook nearby and write down unexpected ideas, dreams, and observations. Read books that challenge your assumptions rather than merely confirming them. The unconscious rewards curiosity. The more room you create, the more creative fire begins to rise from beneath the surface. But as powerful as creativity is, it introduces a new challenge. The conscious mind wants certainty, predictability, and control. The unconscious thrives on possibility, mystery, and transformation. These two forces don't always move in harmony. In fact, much of the tension people experience in life comes from the struggle between what they can control and what they must learn to trust. And understanding that relationship may be one of the most important lessons of all. From the moment you're born, you're taught that control is safety. Control your emotions, control your future, control your reputation, control the outcome. And to a certain extent, that's useful advice. Without discipline, goals remain dreams. Without responsibility, life drifts into chaos. But there comes a point in every person's journey where control reaches its limit. No amount of planning can eliminate uncertainty. No amount of intelligence can predict every twist of fate. No amount of effort can guarantee every desired outcome. Eventually, life places you face to face with a truth that the conscious mind resists. Some of the most important things you'll ever experience require trust, not control. Think about learning to swim. If you panic and fight the water, you exhaust yourself. The harder you struggle, the more difficult staying afloat becomes. Yet the moment you relax and trust the water, something remarkable happens. You discover that it can support you. The unconscious often works the same way. Many people spend years trying to force answers, force growth, force healing, and force certainty. They grip the steering wheel of life so tightly that their hands become numb. Yet transformation rarely responds to force. It responds to awareness. It responds to patience. It responds to your willingness to cooperate with processes unfolding beneath conscious understanding. The deepest forms of self-discovery often arrive not when you're pushing harder, but when you're finally willing to listen. This doesn't mean becoming passive or surrendering responsibility. Trust is not the absence of action. It's the absence of unnecessary resistance. Consider a farmer planting seeds. He prepares the soil, waters the ground, removes weeds, and creates favorable conditions. But he cannot pull on the sprouts to make them grow faster. He understands that growth follows its own rhythm. Human transformation follows a similar pattern. You can read books, practice meditation, engage in self-reflection, and pursue personal growth. Those actions matter. Yet there comes a moment when you must trust that the unconscious is continuing the work beyond what you can immediately see. Some lessons need time. Some wounds heal gradually. Some insights emerge only when the mind stops demanding immediate answers. You may have already experienced this without realizing it. Think about a period when you desperately wanted clarity. Perhaps it involved a career decision, a relationship, or a major life transition. At first, nothing made sense. Every option felt uncertain. Then weeks or months later, clarity appeared almost effortlessly. Looking back, you realized that forcing an answer sooner would have led you in the wrong direction. The unconscious had been gathering information, processing emotions, and building understanding long before the conscious mind caught up. This is why patience is often misunderstood. Patience isn't simply waiting. It's trusting that meaningful work is happening beneath the surface, even when visible progress seems absent. And as your trust deepens, another realization begins to emerge. The unconscious doesn't merely influence thoughts, emotions, and decisions. It also communicates through reflections of your inner world. Certain people trigger powerful reactions. Certain situations repeat themselves. Certain patterns appear again and again throughout life. These recurring experiences are not random. They act like mirrors, revealing aspects of yourself that remain hidden from conscious awareness. And once you begin recognizing those reflections, you can never look at life in quite the same way again. One of the most uncomfortable discoveries you can make is realizing that life is constantly reflecting you back to yourself. Most people believe their struggles exist entirely outside of them. The difficult co-worker, the toxic relationship, the recurring disappointment, the frustrating circumstance. Yet beneath many of these experiences lies something deeper. The unconscious has a remarkable way of using the outer world as a mirror for the inner world. Not because you consciously choose every challenge, but because hidden beliefs, fears, desires, and unresolved wounds quietly influence what captures your attention, how you interpret events, and how you respond to them. The result is a series of patterns that seem external until you begin looking beneath the surface. Have you ever noticed how certain types of situations keep repeating throughout your life? Different faces, different locations, different years. Yet somehow, the emotional experience feels strangely familiar. The person who constantly feels abandoned may repeatedly find themselves in relationships where abandonment becomes a central fear. The person who secretly doubts their worth may continue seeking validation from people incapable of providing it. The individual who fears failure may unconsciously avoid opportunities that could transform their future. These patterns are rarely obvious while you're living through them. That's because the unconscious often operates like a projector, casting internal dynamics onto the screen of everyday life. You think you're only reacting to the movie, unaware that part of the script originated within. This idea can feel unsettling at first because it challenges a deeply held assumption that your problems are caused entirely by external circumstances. But here's the empowering side of the equation. If unconscious patterns contribute to your experience, then transformation becomes possible. Imagine standing in front of a mirror with dirt on your face. Attacking the mirror won't solve the problem. Covering the mirror won't solve the problem. Blaming the mirror won't solve the problem. The reflection is simply revealing something that already exists. Life often performs the same function. The people who trigger you most intensely sometimes expose wounds that need healing. The situations that repeatedly frustrate you may reveal lessons you've not yet fully learned. The mirror isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. One practical exercise is to examine your strongest emotional reactions with honesty. Ask yourself, what exactly is this situation making me feel? When have I felt this before? Is there a recurring theme appearing throughout different areas of my life? Write down the answers without judgment. Over time, patterns begin to emerge. You may discover that anger is masking fear, that perfectionism is hiding insecurity, that resentment is concealing disappointment. This process isn't about self-blame. It's about self-awareness. The unconscious cannot transform what remains unseen, but once a pattern becomes visible, it begins losing its power. Awareness shines light into places that have remained hidden for years, sometimes decades. As this inner mirror becomes clearer, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of random circumstances and start recognizing the deeper forces shaping your journey. The unconscious no longer feels like an enemy lurking in darkness. It begins revealing itself as a source of meaning, growth, wisdom, and transformation. Yet even this realization points toward an even greater truth, one that Carl Jung believed was among the most profound insights of human psychology. A truth suggesting that the deepest layers of the unconscious contain not only hidden wounds and forgotten fears, but the very source of your highest potential. For most of your life, you've probably been told some version of the same story, that darkness is bad and light is good, that what lies beneath the surface should be feared, and that your highest qualities come only from conscious effort and moral discipline. But Carl Jung saw something far more profound. He believed that the unconscious is not merely a reservoir of hidden fears, painful memories, and destructive impulses. It is also the birthplace of your greatest potential. The same depths that contain your wounds may also contain your wisdom. The same darkness that hides your fears may conceal your courage. And the same unconscious forces that create confusion can also become the source of awakening, creativity, meaning, and transformation. This is one of the most powerful truths you can ever discover about yourself. Imagine standing before a mountain at sunrise. During the night, its shape was hidden. You knew it existed, but darkness prevented you from seeing it clearly. Then the first rays of light appear, and suddenly details emerge that were always there. The mountain did not change. Your ability to see it did. The unconscious works in much the same way. The treasures hidden within you are not something you must create from scratch. They already exist. The courage you admire, the creativity you envy in others, the wisdom you seek, the resilience you believe you lack. Much of it is already present within your psyche, waiting for awareness to illuminate it. Self-discovery is often less about becoming someone new and more about remembering who you have always been beneath the noise. This is why some of the greatest transformations occur after periods of confusion, loss, uncertainty, or struggle. At first, these experiences feel like detours. They feel like obstacles standing between you and the life you want. But looking back, many people realize those very challenges became turning points. The heartbreak that taught them self-respect, the failure that revealed a new path, the crisis that forced them to confront truths they had spent years avoiding. The unconscious has a remarkable ability to transform suffering into wisdom when you are willing to engage with it rather than run from it. Like an alchemist turning lead into gold, it can convert life's most painful experiences into sources of strength, purpose, and meaning. Consider for a moment how different your life could become if you stopped treating your unconscious as an enemy. What if your fears contained valuable information? What if your dreams carried meaningful messages? What if your emotional reactions revealed hidden opportunities for growth? What if your recurring struggles were not evidence of failure, but invitations to deeper understanding? These questions shift everything. They transform life from a series of random events into a meaningful journey of self-discovery. They invite you to become curious rather than fearful, aware rather than reactive, engaged rather than asleep. The unconscious is not blind. In many ways, it sees more clearly than the conscious mind ever could. And perhaps that's the deepest lesson of all. The path toward wholeness does not require eliminating your shadow, conquering every fear, or achieving some impossible state of perfection. It begins when you develop the courage to explore the depths of your own psyche with honesty and humility, because hidden beneath the fears you've avoided, the wounds you've carried, the symbols you've ignored, and the questions you've postponed, lies something extraordinary. Not merely answers, not merely healing, but the highest good Jung spoke about, a source of transformation that has been waiting within you from the very beginning. If there's one idea I hope stays with you after this journey, it's this: the unconscious is not your enemy. The parts of yourself you've ignored, feared, rejected, or misunderstood may be carrying some of the most important lessons of your life. Every emotion, every recurring pattern, every dream, every moment of intuition may be inviting you toward a deeper understanding of who you truly are. The question is no longer whether the unconscious influences your life. The question is whether you'll continue letting it guide you from the shadows, or whether you'll finally begin listening. What hidden strength have you been overlooking? What fear might actually be pointing toward growth? What recurring challenge keeps appearing because there's still something valuable left to learn? And perhaps the most important question of all: who could you become if you stopped running from yourself? Take a moment and reflect honestly. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now. Because transformation doesn't begin when circumstances change. It begins when awareness changes. The unconscious has been speaking to you your entire life through symbols, emotions, intuition, creativity, dreams, and experiences. The real challenge is learning to recognize the language. So I'd love to hear from you. What part of this video resonated with you the most? Have you ever experienced a dream, intuition, or life pattern that seemed to reveal something deeper about yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience may help someone else on their own journey of self-discovery. And if you found value in this video, don't let this be the end of the conversation. Subscribe to Mind's Silent Echo, activate notifications, and join us as we continue exploring the hidden dimensions of the mind, the unconscious, self-discovery, transformation, wisdom, intuition, creativity, and the deeper truths that shape human life. Because the greatest mysteries you'll ever explore are not out there in the world. They're already within you, and the journey has only just begun.